Here we are, meetings. It is still January 22nd at 10:20, and we're going to take our second piece of testimony on H 545, and then we're going to do a straw poll about it. We already heard from Nolan that there is no anticipated fiscal impact. And we're going to hear from Katie about what the bill actually is. We've done it in reverse order today because people's schedules.
Katie McGlynn, Office of Legislative Counsel. It's nice to see everyone. Okay, I know. Zoom is getting the best of me. Let me pull up the document. Thanks. Okay. So this is House Human Services Committee report on the immunization recommendation bill, H 545. I know that you do not want to walk through this entire bill in detail. So I will try to give you a high level overview of what the bill does. And if you have specific questions, we can drill down on language. As you have probably heard, this bill is aimed at shifting the way and who makes recommendations for immunization schedules in Vermont for children and adults. Right now, our statutory language ties immunization recommendations to the CDC. And this language decouples that and instead has our Vermont Commissioner of Health making recommendations on immunization schedules. These are not required immunizations. This is the recommended schedule. So the commissioner's recommendations, there are sort of specific guardrails for how the commissioner is to make these recommendations. One thing the commissioner would do would be consult with a specific immunization group that already exists in Vermont. The Human Services Committee did make some adjustments to the makeup of that committee, but it is a group that already exists. And the commissioner would be consulting with this group of professionals to make recommendations. The other thing the commissioner is required to do is review other professional organizations' immunization schedule. That list includes the CDC, but also professional organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics, Academy of Family Physicians, those types of groups. So there's a whole list in the statute of who, which sets of recommendations the commissioner shall be looking to in developing the recommendations for Vermont. You will see that this bill is quite lengthy, 24 pages. I don't think that should be too daunting because a lot of those pages reenacts law that is currently in place. The provisions that change how the recommendations are made are only in place for 6 years, July 1, 2031. You'll see that repeated over and over in the bill. And so half of the bill is putting language back in place. It's in place now with some exceptions. For example, I said that the committee makeup of the committee that's making recommendations to the commissioner has been changed. That committee makeup and those changes would be retained going forward after the 6 years. What you might be more interested in is health insurance. Right now, health insurance, there's no copay or deductible. There's no cost to the consumer for receiving an immunization that's recommended by the CDC. But because the statutory language is linked to the CDC, this is decoupling that and instead referring to the commissioner's recommendations. So there would still be no financial obligation on the consumer for receiving an immunization that was recommended by the commissioner. So we have two sections that do that. There's also language about pharmacists and pharmacy technicians in terms of what their scope of practice is with regard to prescribing and administering immunizations. Again, right now it's coupled with the CDC recommendations. So the language in the bill decouples that and instead links the authority to what the commissioner is recommending for the period of 6 years.
Is there any changes, just like a few clarifying questions? One, are there any changes at all in this bill to mandates for vaccines in any way?
No, there's nothing about having, like requiring somebody to take one. It's developing a schedule of recommendations.
And the administration was who brought this bill to the committee?
Yes, this came from the Department of Health.
Thank you. And then can you show us the bottom of page 16? Thank you. I think that's the only reason the bill has arrived with us. Had you found the bottom of page 16 too? Thank you.
Yeah, my questions were on page 16 and page 20, but yes.
Let me just know where I am before I bring you down there. Oh, restoring. So this is language that's an existing law. And where you are is where it's being restored to the way it currently is before any changes happen. But this language is about how the payments happen for the existing state's immunization program. And this language requires that there be a surcharge on health insurers that is remitted to the health department to fund the immunization program. And there is a existing group
That's all current law.
it's current law. There's an existing group that makes determinations about what the appropriate funding for the immunization program is, and they're regularly giving that information to the health department to fund its program. That's all existing law. But I think that's maybe what you're interested in. Could that be what you're referring to? Okay.
Yeah, do you have more representative?
So I was just a little bit above that. It says the department shall determine which immunizations, it says the immunization program shall purchase immunizations from the Federal Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at the lowest available cost. My question was, given where the CDC is right now, sort of in flux, whether that is going to be the place to buy the immunizations at the lowest available cost or not. I was surprised that that language hadn't changed.
It has. You're looking at the section repeated, when it's repeated, going back to existing law. So
Okay.
this is what it currently says in law, and after 6 years, this is the proposal that it would go back to this. What the proposal from Human Services says that they could purchase from the CDC or another vendor at a lowest cost, at the lowest
That's
cost.
where I got confused, just the
Yeah.
structure of how this is put together, because I read it probably too fast, and like the beginning, I was like, oh, this is all making sense, and then I got to pages 16 and 20, I was like, wait, this is talking
Yeah.
about the CDC again, and I got.
It is very confusing. The first half of the bill is what changes Human Services is putting in place, well, proposing to put in place for the next 6 years. Second half of the bill is what the program will look like after 6 years. For the most case, it goes back to what the current program is, again, with some grammatical changes and with some changes to the makeup of the advisory council.
Any other questions?
So we're changing it now, and in 6 years' time, it'll go back to what it is now.
Yes, for the most part, with those few little changes that would be
Things
retained.
change.
Yeah.
So currently, the health department has the authority to determine the fee charged for the immunization, correct?
I believe so.
Without any action by the legislature.
I believe it happens with this financial advisory group that's in statute, that they are determining the per member per month payment for the immunizations, how many people in Vermont are receiving immunizations, which immunizations, and they're providing those recommended numbers to the health department. So the health department knows how much to be collecting from the health insurers. We do have somebody from the health department here, so if I have mangled that, I would welcome a correction.
That's already occurring anyway.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
That's already occurring now. The base of the fee. Essentially, It's not, the legislature isn't involved at all?
Right now, there's already, let me bring you up to the top of the bill. There's already in the section 1 of the bill, I think it's subsection G, let's see. There's already I'm not sure yet. Page 3 and 4. So there's this immunization funding advisory committee. It's an existing law. It's established to provide the commissioner with the annual per member per month cost of recommended immunizations. That term recommended immunization has a special meaning here to mean immunizations recommended by the Commissioner of Health for the pediatric population, and it's doing the same thing for the adult population, and a recommendation for the amount of the yearly immunization assessment. And then we have a list of who is on this committee. And so this committee is doing the work of calculating how much funding has to be collected from the health insurers to fund the immunization program that the state runs, whereby anyone in Vermont who wants to receive a recommended immunization receives one without a cost. So that this bill maintains that structure.
Any other questions for Katie? No, okay, so Nolan said, thank you, Katie, very
You're
much.
welcome.
Enjoy whatever committee you're about to.
Okay.
Or don't. I feel. So next up, we have a straw poll. We don't have possession of the bill. Nolan said there was no revenue impact of any kind.
Straw poll motion or
I
something?
don't think I need a straw poll motion. I think I'm just gonna ask you to do a straw poll.
So usually for straw polls, we just say everyone who is in favor,
Oh, everyone in favor, say aye.
say aye and raise your hand so I can count. Oh, it looks unanimous, 11-0-0.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Along with our theme for the day of constantly totally changing topics, we're gonna talk about our miscellaneous tax bill now. Yeah, so anyone who wants to come or go or leave or find a chair, would you like to find a chair? Okay, great. And tax department, whatever combination you would like to arrange yourselves in at the table, you're welcome to. Is this your first time testifying this session? Oh, hello, welcome. So nice to see you. Special shout out for Abby for her return to the room. And Representative Page, want to give you a moment to.
Hold on.
Yeah, okay. Floor is yours.
Great. Well, I'm Rebecca Samaroff. I'm the Deputy Commissioner at the Vermont Department of Taxes. And I'll just say I feel like I've been very close to you all this session because of the joys of YouTube, but it is really great to be here in person. So,
Good morning. My name is Jill Remick. I'm the Director of Property Valuation and Review at the Tax Department.
great, yeah. And I think under my name on your documents, we just did a section by section of the draft of the miscellaneous tax bill that's up right now, just kind of guide our discussion today. And we heard like a really great summary of a lot of this from Kirby last week, and thought we could approach this just by kind of going through section by section and addressing some of the questions that we had flagged from committee members, and then also, get them in real time, obviously. Would be great.
Do you want to share your screens follow along with you? You
don't want to do that. Is that an answer that's acceptable? Yeah, sorry. I just have like a tremendous amount of things open right now, and that's always scary as a tax official to go live.
Okay.
But I think some of my notes, no, it like takes a lot of forethought. I don't multitask as well as I did before parenting.
You're actually
Now you're
getting better. It's just
We're not. Yeah. I did think of like bringing in a picture of the twins for this group, so, which I should do.
Next time.
Yeah, in a more spacious test.
Definitely.
Yeah, because we think about you guys a lot.
Think about.
Oh, yeah, they hear your voices. Kitchen office, yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, so it's great. Democracy, early age. So I think, I did some of the notes that I'm speaking to, I think are on this, section by section in the note section, but I did like take some ones on the side here too, which are not polished. So another reason why it'd be great if folks could follow along, separately. But section 1 of, the miscellaneous tax bill draft right now is that, issue of credit or taxes paid to another state by an S corp owner, and how our current statute treats owners of an S corp differently than owners of other partnership structures like LLCs, or other pass-through structures like LLCs or partnerships. I think like the questions I heard in this committee were like more about like the background of how this came to be. And it is a juicy tale, Kirby, that you can hear firsthand now. Like it's like, I don't know, like borderline scandalous, I think. It happened in the 90s. So not many, if any of us were there at this time, but basically there was like a seminal Supreme Court case, Tarrant versus the Department of Taxes, about this issue, where Tarrant was successful in all levels of appeal. The Supreme Court in 1999 ruled that, like, yes, of course, an S corp owner is eligible for this tax credit for taxes paid to another state, as are other pass-through entity owners. But in this journey of appeal and going through the court system, in the middle there, when it was still actually getting decided in Superior Court in 1996, the tax department, which, with the support of the legislature, apparently just changed the underlying law and put in this clause, this piece that said, pass-throughs can take this credit, but not S corps, which seems like probably related to the individual and the case at hand. Like, so the court case was all about the tax year that had passed. And meanwhile, the tax department, sponsored legislation to change the law moving forward. So I think like, the historical record's been like, oh, there was a big court case that said something about this, but it's like kind of news to us this year that actually in our statute, there's like this little bit of inequity that says that, if your pass-through is designed as an S corp, you don't have the same, benefits of taking this credit as other S corp owners. So now that we've seen it, we can't unsee it. We would really like to restore equity for all pass-through entity owners by addressing this. So that's my exciting tale.
Just to clarify, if I may, because it's always tough when you are repeating a denial. Double negatives.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So currently it's just more advantageous for an S corp, the treatment of an S corp. Is that correct? And
It's less advantageous currently. Like everyone can take this credit except for S corps. And
It's like a vengeful little corner of statute.
yeah, yes, there's definitely vengeance. Yeah, we try. Yeah, not one of our core values anymore. Again, I'll read that in the presentation 2 years in a row, but I promise that's not it. But yeah, so is there any other questions on that piece, besides the thrilling backstory? Great, awesome. All right, the next one on my list, section 2, is the property transfer tax, the higher rate for second homes. We're proposing we've put forward some language that closes identified loophole in that language. And the questions this is like where, folks could, so this is the higher rate for properties that, are like second homes in the eyes of the property transfer tax. So that's like it's fit for year-round habitation, but it's not rented out long-term. It's not used as a principal residence. And, there's a legal pathway now where someone could purchase a home, like set up an LLC and rent it to themselves and, still meet that long-term rental threshold, or, do a number of other arrangements that aren't arm's length, like, I don't know, rent it to your kid who's not there that often, or your nephew or something. I don't know. A number of arrangements that could be designed just for tax avoidance, which is not great. So this language, proposes like having the commissioner have discretion to kind of like review the facts of these situations and, deny that lower rate. If the commissioner determines that it's inappropriate, if it's not like a, bona fide landlord-tenant relationship, for example, or that like, an entity only exists for tax avoidance. But really like the enforcement meat of a proposal like this is gonna be through real estate attorneys, because these transactions are handled, when you're doing your closing, it's one of like a million things. It's like still PTSD is a recent-ish home buyer. A bunch of stuff that happens all at once. Your real estate attorney is there guiding you every step of the way. And, those professionals take their professionalism very seriously, their licensure seriously. They're, great stewards of tax law. So I think clarifying that this loophole does not exist anymore is going to do a lot of the lift, just right there. And we will certainly be giving these a lot of extra scrutiny, after, if this change came to pass, but really, count on the, professionalism and wisdom of that community to, make sure that these arrangements don't happen anymore, because they'll no longer be legal as they are today.
Thank you. And I found sort of some links online of advice about the loophole, really like right around the same time you sent the language about the loophole. So I appreciate that you caught this. Yeah.
Thank you. Could you tell me those two rates that property tax?
Oh, that is a really good question that would have been great to have prepared for you.
I can find it.
Yeah, it's like very findable on our website, so I'm gonna venture to multitask.
Property transfer tax rate?
Yeah. The increase from
3.4% for second home, 3.05%,
3.45.
or 3.47. That's the 0.02. And water surcharge, 0.22, something.
Representative Holcomb.
Am I allowed to take a like slight segue? That's fine.
Let's not.
Yes, just asking.
Okay, well, I did pull this up in the non-principal residence tax rate is 3.4%. And that becomes 3.62 when you include the clean water surcharge, which is also applied to those properties.
Impressive that you had a close number inside your.
Yeah.
2.62, you said with the water.
No apologies at all. Oh yeah, 3.62 with the clean water surcharge, that's right.
Thank you.
And there's a great fiscal note from Ted when that passed that we can find. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Okay.
Any other questions on that section for people?
All right, well, sections 3 and 4 are in current use world, so I can pass the mic a bit on this one. Oh, this is a land use change tax, changing that.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll try to provide a quick overview of land use change tax, just to sort of set the table a little bit. So in 2015, the legislature made some pretty significant changes to the current use program. One of which is the land use change tax. So this is basically the, for lack of a better word, penalty or expense of removing the lien from the land. And that can either be voluntary or if there has been development on the land. But either way, basically when the land is no longer eligible for enrollment, either by choice or by development, then the lister or assessor at the local level must establish the value of the withdrawn portion coming out. So if I have an entire parcel in the program, I'm taking the lien off the whole parcel, that's fine. That's the fair market value of the entire parcel. The lister doesn't need to do anything extra. But what the process is, if it's a portion of the parcel, then we receive the either request from the landowner or we make a director's determination. We send that valuation request to the lister and assessor. They're required to establish a value of that item as a standalone parcel. And then the tax is 10% of that valuation. So, and just again, some municipalities may not see a land use change tax request very often. It's not as high of a churn even remotely as current use applications or homestead declarations, right? This is only in the instance when a portion of the parcel is coming out of the program. So they may not see some of these for years at a time. And so the vast majority of time that works out fine. But there have been a couple instances where we have not been successful in getting that valuation. And so then that sort of creates a delay in the landowner getting the land moved, and that can impact real estate transactions. It can impact enrollment. So what we do as a practice now in PBR is when there is a withdrawal that requires the evaluation, that valuation request is sent to the municipality. We also send a 30-day reminder and a 60-day reminder. And there are just a few instances every year where, and I don't think it's in any means negligence or with refusal to do so. There's just people who work part-time. There's some turnover. There may not be anybody on the other end seeing that email. That a landowner is sort of asking us for what their liability is. And so this is just a way, just to be clear, we don't really want to use this or do this having the tax department set the value, but it's a way to kind of release that logjam. If after 60 days, we still haven't been able to give that landowner an answer, we obviously will continue to do our level best to work with the municipality to get that value in. That's still the goal. The goal is definitely not for PBR to take on valuation on a regular basis, but this seemed like one way we could address that when those instances come up. And another piece of this that we thought was really important while we were having this conversation, right now the appeal window is only 14 days. And so if you're a landowner, again, you may only do this once in your entire time of owning the parcel. You're submitting an appeal to the valuation. You're getting the land use change tax bill from the tax department. So then you say, oh, I'm going to submit my appeal to the tax department. So if they come in to us, the valuation appeals still need to go through the municipality. So now they've lost their window. They haven't appealed to the right place. So we want to make sure there's a little more time for us to be able to say, actually, this appeal needs to go to the municipality first and then through us. Because again, these are sort of intent versus impact, right? These things, if everything goes according to plan, it makes total sense. But the impact is that we then have to appeal, we have to docket that appeal and then basically say, sorry, it's too late. And I would say about 25% of the land use change tax related appeals that our current use section chief gets are in it. They're not meant to come here. They're land use change tax valuation items that should have gone to the municipality by the time, especially honestly, and like the mail, 14 days is a very short window, even in normal times. So we modeled that we made a 30-day request because that's much more consistent with other parts of property valuation appeals. So just again, hoping we don't have to do this very often, but the idea is basically if in the instance where we have been unsuccessful in getting that valuation for that land use change tax from the municipality, again, despite we will definitely continue to try to work as much as we can, so we don't want to have to do this, but this was one sort of fail-safe we wanted to ask for those situations where a landowner has not gotten their information. The last component of that is right now, whatever 50% of the land use change tax collected on a given parcel up to $2,000 is remitted to the municipality. So again, I wasn't here in 2015, but my understanding is that was sort of meant to be like, hey, we understand this is more work for you, municipality, so you get some of this land use change tax revenue back. So in the instance where, again, this is sort of a carrot and stick situation, we're hoping to not have to do this, but in the instance where we were unsuccessful in getting that valuation, then all of the land use change tax collected would go to the ed fund and the general fund, which is where the balance of that goes now. Whatever we collect currently, the municipality gets 50% of the 2,000, and the rest goes to the general fund and the ed fund. So we would just put all of that into that same pot of money. I think those are the main components I wanted to make sure we covered. Representative Burkhardt?
So I had a question about this the other day when it was presented. You might have already seen the question. The question was the situation where the municipality sort of misses its 30-day window to do the initial valuation. So it kind of lost out on sharing the land use change tax, its portion of it. But then it gets appealed, and then PBR goes back and asks the municipality to actually go back and do some work because they have to go then do some work to respond to the appeal. But they've already kind of missed out on any revenue that they're basically keeping out of that land use change tax. And I just didn't know if there was going to be incentive for them to do the work on the appeal if they had already lost out on the carrot parts of the.
Well, I don't see us on day 31 saying too bad, so sound. Right now, we would continue to we would do our phone calls. We would send 30-day and 60-day reminders. Like, we don't really want to be in that position to do that. We want to give the town ample time to do that work. And then if they don't, right now, there's other places in statute where PBR sets the value, like for utility properties, there's subsidized housing exemptions, there's all these other places where the municipality is the first place of appeal, but they really haven't been, they don't really have any option to change that valuation. They could certainly, the BCA could certainly say, well, we don't agree with PBR at that point and change it if they want to, as just like they could with other appeals. But the hope is always to do whatever we can to help the municipality get that valuation in. And then, yeah, at that point, if they get that appeal, they'll say, hey, this is just what PBR told us, and up the chain it will go. And
Okay, so it'll basically get picked back to you if they appealed the decision that PBR had made in terms of that.
yeah, I definitely would not want them to have to do additional work at the appeal level. I would be like, well, this is the value that has been now imposed on us by PBR, so that's what we have to go with.
Yeah, so it sounds awkward, but there is like some precedent for this type of thing, and also as PBR's work in valuing these things would be using the town's land schedule, which, the land schedules are unique town by town, which is part of the reason why it was hard to come up with like a statewide way to value these partial parcels that get withdrawn, which is something we were trying to tackle in the prior year.
Yeah.
So, hopefully, using the town's land schedule will also feel like, it's kind of treated there.
And
area.
I've come in a few times to this building to see if we could change how land use change tax works, because it does require a lot of steps and a lot of sort of unique evaluations, and we just haven't been able to thread that needle. So moving on from that, this is like a simple thing that I think there's like a handful of taxpayers a year who would at least get that bill sooner from us for their land use change tax. But the goal would always be to work with the municipality to get the valuation. And, there's 30 days, 60 days, like we would do our level best before we get to the point of saying, well, I guess there's really nobody there, which is sometimes that happens. It's hard to find folks to do this work. So hoping not to have to do this, but if we do once or twice a year, if it becomes I think another question you might have is, well, then why would the town, maybe they just want to sort of not bother. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if that was attributed to you or not, but if that starts to happen, then we would be coming in here to have a bigger conversation. Like this is PBR has like no capacity to do multiple individual things, but once in a while we can go to the town, get their land schedule. We can look at the valuation and we can come up with a percentage. Like, well, we can figure that out. We'd rather not have to do that.
That's a timing question. So if landowner contacts you saying, I'm taking this 10 acres out of the 100 out of current use, you then contact the municipality, say, hey, Joe's taking the land out of current use, and then they don't do anything for 30 days. Joe contacts you again and said, hey, the town hasn't done anything. So is that when your clock starts going as to when you need to do the evaluation?
Well, I'd like to continue our current practice, which is from the point of which the director asks the municipality for the valuation, like they get sort of an email and notification that says, hey, this land, this amount of acreage, whatever this is coming out. The 30-day, they'd get another reminder from us, hey, this is still sitting in your queue. And then after the 60 days, or unless someone's saying, hey, look, I'm gonna have to change my real estate transactions because of this, then we'll do what we do now, which is we'll try to contact the municipality. But they have the full 30 days from the point at which the director asks them to do the valuation, which is also not a lot of time, but considering like this is something is happening to land in the program or someone wants to remove the lien, there is definitely like a sense of urgency there that we'd like to do. But yeah, I don't want to, at 30 days, I think there's still a lot that still haven't been done, but within 60 days, a lot more can come in, especially because we're sending reminders and calling.
So I think the typical time for an appraiser right now is about 6 weeks. That's still the same?
Yeah, but for a parcel coming out of the current use program, this is not like a full valuation. This is like looking at your land schedule. Oh, it's 10.5 acres out of the 50. I mean, I'm not making light of the work, but it doesn't require them to have an assessor come in and there might be some instances where it's a complex property and that might be the case, but theoretically they've already done that because when you enroll in the program, the local assessing official has already established the value of the enrolled piece and the excluded piece. So they have something there to go by. So hopefully it's not a big, I haven't heard that component is the problem with the 30 days. It's more just honestly, it's hard to reach folks sometimes and they don't have to do this very often, so this is not like, oh, it's Monday, I better check and see if I have land use change tax valuations to do this. It's very sporadic,
Sporadic.
sporadic.
Thank you.
So the next section about the sheep, was something that we had a remarkable number of
I don't know what you're
hypothetical
talking about.
questions about. We went kind of far. into-
Yes, it was, I was sitting at my desk going, oh, I can't wait to get in there and try to clear some of this up. So you want me to move on to? So, yeah, so current use, okay, let's keep it
You want me to,
really, really narrow.
Kick it off with my favorite
Sure.
anecdote. This is the, you know.
Better than the story about the vengeful.
I mean, this is just like how I sat with this proposal and was like, oh, this makes intuitive sense to me. That right now, so this is about the qualifying income from grazing, the sheep, cows, whatever. But, you know, today, like haying is a big part of, you know, Vermont's agricultural landscape and current use program. So like if you hay your property, sell it to your neighbor and like drop it over their fence, you're set. But if you open your gates and say, here's like, let's sign this lease where you can come graze my property, that doesn't count. And that feels
Direct
like.
to consumer.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, the latter feels even more Vermonty if we're, you know, throwing around terms like that. But just like, it feels like that's like a inequity that's challenging. It's not, and I just want to like, you know, from a fiscal perspective, we don't have like, we're not sitting on a pile of folks who are trying to become eligible for the program because they're, you know, want to open their gates to their neighbors to come graze their land or, you know, something like that. But, you know, we're aware that that's like a big part of, you know, agricultural activity that's happening on enrolled land right now that's probably, you know, meeting multiple, you know, eligibility thresholds. You know, it isn't just about the neighbors' cows coming to graze, but you know, it's just like, it's a known practice and it feels weird that, you know, one way like haying and selling works, but the other way of making your lands available for grazing doesn't.
And I think it's really important to remember this. I've only known of one instance in my time that this has come up. Like that it's not common. Typically because, right, so there's lots of other ways that pasture that is being grazed on or hayed or cultivated can be enrolled in the program. Or there's lots of sort of agreements, right? Like maybe you're leasing to a qualified farmer and they're a qualified farmer and using that property and like you can be qualified under that. This is literally only in the instance where it's my 5 acres. I'm not a qualified farmer. I'm not like, I don't qualify that way, but I'm selling $2,000 or more. I'm literally getting $2,000 or more from whatever the use of my property is that is then considered a farm crop. So this shouldn't prevent anybody from existing practices that are already happening. Like I said, I only know of one in which this came up. I've spent a lot of time worrying about this because anytime we talk about current use and like, you know, unintended consequences. So like this does kind of keep me up at night, but it is a very narrow example of where the parcel might not otherwise qualify. Most people who have a sort of like few parcels for grazing, it's like a tit for tat kind of thing. It's like, I'll let you do this and then I'll like, I think I've told you guys, my mom would have her field hay, then she'd get the manure and that was for her garden. It was kind of like a helpful thing. But this is specifically for the income requirement for less than 25 acres only, meeting that $2,000 revenue threshold of grazing rights on a per head basis. And so I do think we've heard from our colleagues at Agency of Agriculture that this would be a helpful, you know, there's like sort of this narrow band that for all intents and purposes is doing what we want the program to do, but doesn't currently qualify. Under 25 acres and currently not earning $2,000 from grazing. Yeah.
We want to better understand how many more properties might qualify or sort of the fiscal impact of this. Not today, but like before we finish. Should we have ag come in? Do you want to come back and talk about that? Should we send JFO on the?
Like our internal evaluation is that it's like, we're not expecting a fiscal impact. from
Okay.
this. Like, there's, if we had been like denying application, like enrollment applications on this, then, we would know if there was some, wellspring we were tapping, but, it's, yeah, it's come up more in a compliance space, questions that, flag areas, so.
Great. Thanks. I'm not sure if we were running behind or if this is taking, I don't really know what happens wise. Does it make more sense for us to reschedule time with Rebecca and Adam and finish this now? Because it
We're
seems like we
also-
probably have like another 45 minutes worth of this memo. No?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're gonna wrap up in 5 if we wanna go through this stuff.
Me either.
Yeah. I'm open to either of the next two being rescheduled.
Adam, do you mind if I reschedule you? So you don't have to wait on that really cozy bench for a while? Okay, cool, thanks.
You guys.
Oh, nice to see you. Happy New Year.
Right. Do folks have more questions for Jill or I on the grazing?
Everyone's okay. We had, was it just sort of a day where we got a little silly about the types of animals and that's why we spent so much time on it? Okay.
Goats, geese, chickens.
The questions are there, but I don't think they're relevant to this.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay.
The next section 6, was the municipal grand list stabilization program. This was a request and I'm actually not sure if I tracked questions on this one, but this was a technical request to change the statutory calculation. So we're using the prior year's municipal rate rather than the current year's municipal rate. A couple of reasons for this is that that's the methodology for pilot payments to municipalities. So it allows that work to be done in the same way at the tax department. It happens the same human, same process. So that'd be great. Also using the current year rates, and Jill, actually, you might be better prepared to speak to this than I am. So feel free to step in. But it requires a lot of extra vetting because the process for doing these stabilization payments happens kind of before the municipal rates would need to be vetted for later in the year department processes. And this year it was like, 30 individual town rates that, our team member had to go through and have some back and forth with the municipalities. There's often, and this is like where my depth gets a little light. There's, just some, inaccuracies of how those municipal rates get transferred to the department. And there's like always some back and forth with them. It's like their local agreement rates or, municipal rates are our own complicated world that luckily I don't need to know much about, but, anyways, so I think, the biggest, rationale for this ask is that it's just like how pilot payments work. And it's, very similar calculation.
It feels like it was an inadvertent. It wasn't meant to be different.
Yeah, I should have thought about that last year. Did on that.
That's why we have this annual bills.
Yeah.
Which we didn't think about last year.
Yep.
Or in 1983, I think.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, you're good?
Good, yeah.
All right, so section 7, so you all might remember 2 years ago, the legislature passed the creation of a new brand list category for communications property. So that requires a pretty big change to.
We actually took testimony about this very recently because there was that little bit in budget adjustment about it.
Right.
So we're like,
Okay, so you're caught
higher
up.
than you might expect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did ask for an extension last year and got it, thank you, because it's not simply naming something that's called one thing and naming another. It's changing treatment of telecommunications property, basically creating a new category in the definition of that. And then it does have impacts on moving some things that might have been personal property at the municipal level onto the grant list. So we are in the process of implementing that as we speak. That is in effect for this coming tax year. This language is simply taken from another part of statute with $100. I looked, it was first done in 1965. So I realized that seems sort of trivial, but the idea is simply that we would have the same sort of leverage for us and municipalities to get the information that we need in time to do the valuations. This was also suggested by our contractor because they have a similar construct in Massachusetts, but this was language that was taken and cleaned up from what used to be, hey, this was the penalty if you didn't provide this inventory to municipalities. Now it's, hey, this is the penalty if you don't provide it to PBR. I don't know that it's actually ever been put into place, but we do want to make sure that like we are able to collect the inventory. And there is a component in here that if there's sort of willful uncooperation of providing those inventories, that the appeal rights are denied for that valuation. If you did not send an inventory, if you willfully did not participate in providing the inventory, therefore PBR kind of had no choice but to come up with something based on the information you could glean, then you've lost your appeal right. So it's very much meant to be like, hey, let's get this to us so that we can do our best to provide you a fair valuation.
I know that you all go out of your way to have positive relationships with anyone that you're trying to collect information from. And you just described sort of sending multiple emails at multiple, in another scenario. And I am wondering if $100 fine is a meaningful enough fine to make it any difference in anyone's behavior whatsoever. Especially, I imagine at the municipal level, it's sort of smaller entities. And if you're collecting sort of all of the information for the whole state from one entity, like that might be a larger scale situation. I don't know. I don't have a suggestion of a higher fine. I just and maybe you could even just say like, in a couple of years, this fine clearly isn't doing what it needs to do. Maybe we should raise it. I don't know. I just I can't imagine $100 is any of the people
Same
it's from. Okay, great.
It is taken from another section. I think it's a token. It's just sort of meant to sort of hold that place. I think the much larger sort of,
Is the appeal rights.
influence is the appeal rights. Yeah.
Okay.
Chair, thank you. What's that inventory deadline? What's the deadline if you have to?
March 31, they need to get them back to PBR. We haven't sent them the form yet. That's on, we need to do that by February 1. So that's what our crunch is right now. So we get them the form by February 1. They provide them back to us March 31, and then we have to give the values to the towns May 1.
Thank you.
So this will be the first year that we're implementing this. So. Oh, next is the reappraisal CLA. Did anyone have any other?
Are you so excited about that?
Yeah. This one doesn't give me adjective the way that current use and communications property does. This was actually has come up several times over the last few years with really smart people at the department, like Jake Feldman and Chloe Wexler. Right now, the statute requires us to do a different calculation for the municipality in the year in which a reappraisal is completed. That is a different way of calculating the CLA in other years, which makes sense. But what the calculation does right now is creates what we call a snapback. So in the year of the reappraisal, we generate this reappraisal CLA following that sort of statutory guideline, and it looks really good. It's like 110 or 120 or so on. But then the next year, you're going back to how the CLA is calculated normally, and it might be 95, or it might be 99, or it might be 91. And so it's sort of a strange one-time calculation that creates a false sense of what the CLA is doing for that 1 year. And then it creates quite the snapback the following year, because then you're going back to the normal. There are also lots of ways the CLA is used that may not necessarily be obvious to everyone. It's not just for the tax rate, right? So we use it for current use valuation. In the year in which a reappraisal is happening, the current use values, we use the reappraisal CLA. For utility valuation, we apply the CLA to those values directly. There's lots of other things we use the CLA for. And so right now we sort of make this sort of falsely inflated value for 1 year, plug that in all the different places, including on the tax rate, which looks really great the year of the reappraisal, but then the very next year, you're back into the normal treatment. So it would give the municipalities very clear understanding what their CLA is. beginning of the year in which the reappraisal is finalized theoretically. Right now, it doesn't, we can't get them that until like August usually.
That's one of my favorite parts of this, because I know that the reappraisal process in a municipality is such an incredibly stressful thing to navigate with a community, and this adds at least like one piece of stability for the municipality as they're navigating that.
Right. Right, so
Yeah.
that's huge, because right now, yeah, there's this, grievances are happening, tax bills are going out, and somewhere in there or right after that, you get this interim reappraisal CLA for the next 6 months for that year, and then we do the equalization study and we're back to doing a CLA the normal way. So it would provide that information a lot sooner, provide a little more stability for that year. I think, just sorry, see if there's anything else that I might have missed, but so if it comes from Jake Feldman and Chloe Wexler, I get excited about it because I have complete faith in their judgment. And this is something we've talked about for years, that we really wanted to see if this is something we could do.
Yeah, and I guess just like a nuance I'll add is that like it has been an active conversation at the department, but we didn't actually put forward proactively to do this year. And I think part of the reason was because we were thinking about pitching it in the reappraisal report, but this actually came out a little bit ahead of our report deadline. We're like, oh, okay, they're exploring this already. But part of the discussion is how this transition becomes a little easier once we're kind of like in flow with our 6-year cycle, because there'll be a little more stability in general. So, there will be folks impacted in various ways from moving to 100% CLA in year one. In some instances where like someone's property value, like let's say the town hasn't reappraised in 20 years and like someone's property value increases like 300% or something, like that's way different than the town's average. The current system could give them a little cushion. Not that that's a reason to keep it, but there are going to be impacts, and those impacts are lessened, the closer we get to a steady cycle of reappraisal. So I think that was part of the reason why we were like, we should definitely do this sometime soon.
And I'd had like at least a dozen passing conversations about it, and I was like, why are we not just putting this out? They're like, enough.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm interested if you guys hear other reactions to this idea. But certainly it seems rational and logical.
Is it just getting the calendar straight? Is that a tax year thing, a fiscal year thing?
Are you like referring to the effective date? So maybe this is like more of a Jill question, but my understanding is that something that that we we'll calculate the CLAs for all these towns in January, like we do the other towns, but then we'll say like, oh, don't use them for reappraisal town. And we actually do that work like July, August.
Right.
So
They have to have their new reappraised brand list in order to calculate the reappraisal CLA.
So I'm not sure if this might be a question for the ladies too, if a effective date on passage, how that would impact that process, like that's coming up this July, August. If that's the effective date, that means that those towns like immediately get an 100% CLA.
I think that was the goal.
Well, it varies in the middle of a recession now, so I imagine our clerk might have a couple questions.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, because we just replaced last year, we've already got our new CLA, which is 103% or 106%. So, but what you're saying is, it would take effect this year to just go to 100% in the coming tax year.
Right, for towns that are reappraising, I guess in 2026. The 2026 reappraisal, I mean, that would be the absolute soonest you could do it. Could be right now.
We're not moving this bill until crossover, so you can think, you're both making lots of thinking faces.
Yeah. Thinking wise, I thought. Yeah, but the intent is to have like a town that's reappraising right now having 100% CLA in FY27. Yeah.
Yes, FY.
Yeah, we'll check the effective date for that.
Okay, so this.
If you move that 50% sign.
Yeah, right now, if you're a school board, like we just passed ours there last night as the word to send out there.
Congrats.
We had, maybe we were a town that was reappraising, we wouldn't know what to put in there to give our voters for.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you would tell any town that is either currently reappraising or just completed Are you telling them to use 100%?
Not
No,
right
no,
now.
no, yeah.
No. No, they kind of have to have a placeholder until we
The
give
summer.
them our official one in the summer. We do calculate, we still calculate, to your point, that we do that, we just finished the equalization study, we did it for everybody across the board, so there is like a CLA that town has. But for their tax bills that go out in July, they should have a different reappraisal CLA to use.
Any other questions about this?
The next sections were, the health IT fund sunset. If Adam was still here, Commissioner Gresham was still here, he might, point out that this is in the Gov's recommended budget as well as a one-year extension, I think.
We were talking about 5 because we're tired about it every single year. So.
I'm not aware that there would be like big resistance to that from the administration, but I will certainly follow up and apologize that I didn't do that ahead of this testimony.
5 was fairly arbitrary. It was just more than 2,
Okay,
less than 10.
so is the committee bill drafted at 5 right now?
I don't know. We've got committee bills drafted at 2 right now.
2, okay, good. Great. Great. Awesome. And then the bill gets into some new to me things. I've like admittedly just started learning about the 529 plan proposal.
And this is, so this was a suggestion that I got from another member who had it flagged by a constituent that essentially like they had a loved one in a 529 with a 529 plan that was like 30 and like had their entire education paid for by their employer or something like that. And so had no need for the 529 spending, though they had gotten like as much education as they could possibly want. And they were like, what are we supposed to, can we roll this in?
Yeah, I know you can roll it over to another young scholar.
Yes.
Um,
And then it's available at the federal level now, and so wanted to match up. So if you all want it, that was the thinking. So if you want to, you're welcome to speak to it now or wait.
Yeah, well, I think, my, I would love to dig in further, but this, my understanding is that this would be another instance where we're not tracking federal treatment exactly, and that, is that your read too? And just the last thing you said, I was like, oh, wait, is it tied up to the federal change?
There is a federal change, but it's not definitionally tied to the, is it definitionally tied to the federal change?
Kirby Key Legislative Council, this is something that's allowed at the federal level currently. Vermont does not allow it because the way our 529 credit is drafted, it's not a perfect coupling. So this language does tie it to what's allowable. Essentially, this language says if you did this rollover properly at the federal level, then Vermont will allow these use of funds, so without penalty.
And I want to be clear, I'm not like wedded to this either. It was like an idea that we're putting into the mix. And we need to take more testimony on too.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll ask to go forth and think and come back on that testimony day on this one. Yeah, I am interested to learn more. On this guy, but thanks. Sorry for not being ready on that one. The next sections were there's some cleanup that I think JFO and tax staff have been working on statewide adjustment, property tax credit, technical items, no concerns there. It's definitely deeper in the weeds than my brain likes to venture, and really trust the thinking there. Also saw new sections on updating inflators, the I don't know, outdated New England Economic Project Index with NEPA, no concerns there. understanding is that's current practice.
We did not talking about that one in committee, because I'm curious to know why you make that.
Oh, it's, that wasn't actually a tax department recommendation. That is something I found in this bill.
Julia can talk more about it, but essentially NEP doesn't exist anymore and they've been using NEPA for a while. And just statute didn't reflect practice. Once we're waiting on that inflator report. And if we decide on a different inflator in that report, we'll have time to change it in miscellaneous tax. But in the meantime, NEP doesn't exist.
I understand.
Oh, okay,
No,
cool.
I'm just asking, is this when we're making the decision about NEPA, which many
Oh.
people think is too broad for specific budget?
This is in this exact moment in committee.
Which is, you've answered my question.
Okay, great. And if you all wind up with an opinion about inflator choices, feel free to.
Yeah, I'm part of that report as well. That sounds really interesting. I was like, I know, I was like, yeah, I don't think I am. I think I'm interested. Section 17, effective dates. I actually did capture a question on that, which I'm not sure if we hit during the grazing rights section, but I think there was a question of why September 2 was recommended as an effective date. Did you hit that?
I didn't.
No, okay.
So September 1 would be the deadline, is the deadline for new enrollments each year. So obviously, we're already in the window of which people are applying for the following current use year. So it wouldn't really be fair to implement this mid-application window. Therefore, if we make it effective September 2nd onward, we're starting a new application window with this new opportunity.
And if there's any other effective date questions, happy to hit those now too. And I tracked the 100% CLA effective date, just clarifying that would do what we intended to.
Actually, I just thought of this, so if you're thinking about it, because on the change it to the municipal grant stabilization program with the prior year tax rate, is that like basically statute just catching up with what you're doing now, or like that? Is there going to be a retroactive effective date for that? Do we just need to put any more thought to that?
I'm not sure the effective date. I think we just set it on passage, and the impact is going to be that for towns that are already getting these payments, like the payments consecutively will be based on the same municipal tax rate, because this year we did do it using the current year. Proof of concept wasn't a great process, and and was awesome, took a little extra lift, but next year we'll be using those same municipal rates.
Right, then it will be the prior year. Yeah.
De minimis fiscal impact, big, favorite word this year.
More?
No.
Oh, okay. There's the 3 that are not in the bill yet that I.
Sorry, sorry. I got to the end of my page. This is why I should be driving with everyone watching. Catch me. So I also just wanted to talk about a few provisions that we're interested in pursuing this year that may hopefully make it into this bill when the timing is right, and happy to come back and talk more on any of these after a little preview now. One of them is the state tax filing threshold. This, I believe, was an oversight when we made a change to a state tax law in prior years. But right now, the threshold to pay a state tax is $5 million. Your state has to be that big. But anyone, according to statute, with more than $2.7 million in a state has to file a return, even though there's no liability, no payment. So there's this, group of folks who, following the letter of the law, have to, file with us. I've never done an estate tax return. I bet it's cumbersome, but for no reason. We're not gathering the data. We're not doing anything cool with it. Would love for folks just to file if they need to pay.
And this was not included yet because we're planning to take a lot more testimony on the estate tax because it's kind of a hot topic this year, both in the governor's recommended budget, and reporters have been asking lots of questions about it because there was such a big spike this last year. And members, everyone, it's interesting because there's extra money in it. So that's why it's not in there yet. Yeah.
Has anyone ever looked at, if your total estate is worth more than 5 million, but you've been receiving a property tax exemption for low income, being able to recapture some of that from the property, the value of your estate? If
I'm
you
not sure
sell it
about
from
that.
estate.
That's an interesting question.
I feel like we started a conversation near there with Jake like 2 years ago, but I don't remember where it went. I think maybe, yeah, it would be interesting to dig back into that. Representative Massel?
Yeah, I wonder if Representative Holcomb could give us an example or be more specific on what you were referring to, which I almost understood, but not quite.
I would say that 10 years ago, anonymize the person who discussed it. There was a case where somebody who was quite wealthy had a very large estate and piece of land, but a very low income was receiving the income sensitivity credit for the
Right.
land.
Yeah.
When they passed away, the value of that estate was taken to the children who happened to live in another state, but there was no clawback mechanism for the fact. that
Right,
they've been-
recapture with there.
No, we.
Yeah,
Capture.
Thank you. That's a good question. Thanks.
And maybe it's irrelevant and you would have the data to know.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that in my time. There's another technical provision, that, we would love to put forward at the risk of talking more about CHIP, which is kind of out of our wheelhouse mostly, but, the statute right now is missing language that clarifies that CHIP projects are treated the same way as other TIF projects for the purposes of our equalization study. And this, becomes meaningful for like a few instances for a few towns whose CLA gets, a little impacted by having in the before times having a TIF district and now potentially having these CHIP projects as well. With it, my understanding is like, it's like a mini TIF, project by project TIF.
How is it treated under TIF districts treated under current law?
That's a really good question. Do any of my colleagues know
I
that
know,
answer?
I'm really feeling a little, I didn't prepare this particular question, but basically the concept of the TIF is there's an original taxable value. And so that's what, so we actually sort of pulled them out during the equalization study and did a slightly different calculation so that it's genuinely providing an accurate, like we use their taxable value for the purposes of this study.
The original taxable value. And you don't you don't bring it to what market value, right? Look like?
No, I think that's what we need to do. We have to separate the TIF OTV. We have to set that aside and then we have to pull the TIF in to treat it as under its current value, maybe applying the CLA. I should know.
Its current hypothetical value if it wasn't a TIF?
Yeah, because we do still have to track that. That's
No, I'm glad you track it. I'm just trying to understand what you do.
the
Okay.
increment value. Sorry, I did not prepare for that.
That's okay. We're gonna probably have to talk about that.
It is very technical, like it is really just meant to treat them the same as the TIF, and I don't think I anticipated it till this equalization study, and then we're like, oh, we have more of these.
Yeah, I was hoping that my wisdom of the fall, when I, wrote memos on these policies would be more specific, but it says the equalization study statute is specific about TIF districts, but says nothing about CHIP projects. It doesn't say what the specifics are. Says nothing about CHIP projects with the TIF plan. So it leaves us to interpretation of how to treat them, which is not ideal.
And if we wanted to add the chips to the TIF report that we receive at the emergency board twice a year, would you need a statutory change for that?
I think that would be good to clarify with the statutory change.
Will Jake be mad at us if we add them?
I don't think Jake will be mad. Wait, will Jake be mad? No, I don't think Jake will be mad.
So let's loop back to that one when we're all better prepared for it.
Okay. So the follow-up there is what the heck do we do with TIF in the equalization study? Yeah. Okay.
I'll just flag, there are a lot of different folks from very different perspectives throughout the legislature that want to do different things to change the CHIP statute. And I want us to be mindful of Pandora's box.
Yeah.
By touching said chip statute. Okay,
Yeah.
And this wouldn't actually, if it helps, it wouldn't actually be changing the TIF statute, it'd be changing our equalization study instructions. Just
will the
to-
word chip be there?
We should
I
probably
think so.
acknowledge the existence.
Great, okay, cool.
If it exists, I think that will have to be part of the solution.
Okay.
It's
Spell it
almost-
out.
Yeah, it's, yeah, great.
Community and housing infrastructure program.
Thank you.
Okay. The last one is something that I assume we could also talk about when we're back on and like reappraisal.
That's why I didn't include it, it was just so that, yeah, because I figured we would be spending much time.
Yeah. Do you want to forego a preview or
Whatever you want, it's fine.
do you want to do it?
So there's statute, a lot of statutory, a good chunk of statutory language that predated Act 60 and Act 68 about the PBR director being responsible for delinquent tax collectors. So in practice, that hasn't happened. There's not really we don't oversee municipal officials to that degree. It puts some burden on them to send us all their delinquent tax sale information, which we don't have anything we can do with that, and we don't intervene with municipal property tax revenue collection. So it's sort of innocuous, it's sitting there, it's sort of obsolete, but it seemed like it would be good to just clear that up. If nothing else, they don't feel like they have to keep sending things that they know and I know are informational only. Yeah.
It is kind of interesting that because the education property tax is also collected at the municipal level, there is not a consistent policy of how towns deal with delinquent property taxes. Right? It's an individual policy of each municipality as to what to do with property taxes that are in arrears.
I don't know, there's penalties, there is a board of abatement that they can abate if the municipality wants to take that on.
We added a
I'll
lot
know more about what,
We added a lot more guidance two years ago,
In March.
and last year. But one thing that I'm curious about is in order to do that statutory change, we were working with like a survey that an intern at Legal Aid did. Because we had very little data on what different communities were doing about delinquent properties. And it sounds like you have like the beginnings of a database inside your email, Jill.
no paper.
Paper, actual pieces of paper that people mail to you?
Doesn't my office this morning. They're required, right now, they're required to formally send any delinquent tax sale information. They have to announce when the hearing is gonna be, the individual, the
And it's all
amount.
on paper.
And you don't have authority to do anything in this process.
Right.
Okay.
Which is fine, but it feels like one less step for those individuals. And also the way I read it, I wouldn't have any.
Like save them in a file? That's so. Sorry.
Save them for a little while and then they go into our shred bin because
Okay.
they may have.
Yeah.
They're public information, but I just, they're on the side of caution.
Okay, cool.
But if I remember correctly, last year we passed the minimum amount being $1,500, under which if it was less than that, it couldn't be brought to tax sale. But it was nothing about, it has to be brought to tax sale.
Mhm.
That's a municipality decision.
Yes.
Okay. Even though the funds may be, well, the town still has to remit it to the
Mhm.
state, even though it may not be collecting it. Never mind.
That's the piece that harmonizes it all.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyone have any questions? Yes.
Are these folks coming back to us closer to the time that we approve this bill? My question is regarding section 12. I didn't really understand if they were talking about property tax credit cleanup. So either if we have time, if we could just briefly go over that section again.
Yeah, let's do that.
I can wait if you'd rather.
Nope, let's do it now.
Great.
Yeah, well,
And so wait, before you answer that, so what I was imagining for process for this is we're gonna keep on adding sections probably throughout the it's the miscellaneous tax bill, so we'll maybe add different sections, different paragraphs as we move into crossover. But if anyone has a section that's already in here that you want more testimony on, please say so, because we will at some point go through and really just do sort of like a review and then a straw poll. So I'm not assuming that sections need more testimony unless someone tells me or I say it aloud. So this is a great time to get those questions answered.
Yeah, so it's like the second greatest time to, if Jake Feldman was sitting here, or, you know, your own Julia Richter, I think, you know, this wasn't, language in section 12 that we put forward, but it is language that we've been, it is a project we've been working on, I think, jointly with the, joint fiscal office.
That's the math didn't quite math the way they had been mathing it. Yes, we'll get Julia to explain it again. Yep.
Thanks. That's why it was vague.
Yeah, you read that.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
So I will flag that to Julia. Explain it again, yeah. Anyone else have any questions?
Actually, at the end of the document.
I think you're at the end of the document now, yeah. And you're gonna come back with answers to a few questions. And
Yeah.
we'll see you soon about.
Yeah.
Like,
I can pre-file these in writing with the committee if that's,
Yeah, that would be great.
first step, and then you can decide if you want to, have more conversation about them. Can send some photos.
Thank you. That sounds really good.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just in other things involved, not like a full, I'm not asking you to do a ton of work, for a report on the municipal grant stabilization program, but just like an update on like.
Oh, yeah.
Like how many people are using it, that's.
Oh, yeah, we've come.
Yeah, we can put that in.
Right,
as well,
just, I don't even think.
There must have been
testimony
some.
on it, I'm just curious.
Fully wrote that.
Okay. Sure.
Great.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. We're back here at 1:15, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And are you